I'm trying to work something out. Looks to be good, but I don't know.
Are you going to log in?
Oh, yeah.
I just want to make sure it's showing up.
I don't need it. What? So I can bring it over. I left mine on my desk. Thank you so much. You're welcome. I'm like this second. But everyone's good. My second adjustment today. Yeah, I got it up first. Yeah, I'm saying. You got it up first. Yeah, I'm making, I don't know which one on that. Are you living random? Two random and then. Okay. So it was like not bad. When I lived there, we were yeah, each of the I like 2 times after it was only 1 spot.
Lots of people here today. It's nice to see everyone. Did you got my email, Kenzie, right? So I'm not exactly sure why there are 17 homework problems for chapter 5. Right. So I'm apologizing because I don't set up the homework. I had somebody yell at me after the second exam, thinking I'm only the deliverer of the lecture. I don't make up the exams and I don't pick the homework, but I am going to be the course coordinator next semester. And half of those problems are going to go away, especially that one, number 17 was ridiculous. So just a warning, if you haven't looked at that homework for chapter 5, I tried to eliminate because some people have gotten in there already and started working. It won't let me delete. So make sure that you allocate some time for chapter 5 homework. It is long. And then make sure you use the TAs too, because they have all of the solutions manual. So I wouldn't spend, especially like I said, for that last problem where you buy green beans and then you have to, it's just beyond what you're ever going to need. So just kind of keep in mind that don't put that off. Make sure that you do that ahead of time. Okay, so it is 10:11, so we can start. More people are signing in, but we'll just do a little review about what we talked about last class. So remember, building on flexible budgets. What we are doing is taking the flexible budget variance or the performance evaluation of a flexible budget. And then what we're doing is breaking that down further into price and quantity. And the way that we are taking that flexible budget and breaking it down into price and quantity is by creating another flex budget and putting it right in between the two, right? I gave you that general model that we're following for materials, labor, and variable overhead. And that general model is showing you this new middle column that we're plopping in between actual and flex is going to help you isolate the price and quantity or the portion of this total flexible budget variance that is due to price and quantity. Because both of these numbers, when we compare these two, we'll be using the same actual quantity. We are isolating price, actual and standard. And then when we compare these two numbers to get the quantity variance, notice that both are using the same standard price. We are isolating quantity. Right, so we've done this variance already for Tuscan tortilla. We started off with that total flexible budget of 8,500 favorable. If we were looking at flexible budgets, we would have said we did a good job controlling our costs because our actual cost of materials was $8,500 less than the flexible budget, flex to actual output. Right, what we did then was we flexed another budget and we compared the two, your actual to your middle column and then your middle column to your flexed. And we saw that we got a lot more information than just we did a good job controlling our cost. We saw that we got a really good price for that material. Right, we were able to buy that material for 10 cents less per pound. And since we were buying 160,000 pounds, we saved $16,000 from that 10 cents. And the quantity variance then told us how well we used that material or how that material held up. And it looks like, well, that good price may have bought us some material that was a little substandard. The quantity variance is unfavorable, meaning we used more than what we expected to use. So what I asked you was, if you compare these two numbers, you can see that I still like this vendor because the price that we're getting is so good that even if we have to throw some of that flour away, we still have a pretty big high material variance here. Okay. So also remember, I gave you the shortcuts. So once you get good at the general model, or you're able to kind of work through the theory kind of things behind this, remember the direct material price variance is looking at how well the purchasing department is doing negotiating a price for buying that material, and the quantity variance is telling you how well that material is holding up. And this was the shortcuts. Okay. Right, and then this was, I think, the last thing that we talked about, and this was the aha moment that I missed, because as I said last class, when you're looking at standard costing system, the inventory or this flour is carried at standard. You're looking at this flour, you bought 160,000 pounds of flour. It is going onto your books at the price you expected to pay, that standard price. Remember, you bought it for $1.40, but your inventory is carried at standard. So that raw material is going to be listed at $1.50. And the idea behind that is when you record the accounts payable, obviously you bought it for $1.40, that's the amount that you're going to pay. But when this flour is purchased, that price variance pops up when you make that purchase. Look how important that could be for you. If you are going to be buying substandard flour, I can look at this from my office and say, wow, that purchasing department just negotiated a price that was way less than what we expected. So I can, from my chair in my office, say, that looks too good to be true. Let me go down and inspect that flour before we actually make all 31,000 cases of tortillas and realize we have to throw it all away. So these variances are in real time, and that variance pops right up when you make that purchase. And then also what I showed you is, remember, as you use that flour in real time, you're getting to see that quantity variance. You're getting to see how well that flour is holding up. So if you start to see that flour really is no good, you can stop production right away and go get better flour. So you can see how this works, and this is a good reminder of how the flow of costs work. You're going to see that when the materials come out of that raw materials warehouse, and remember they're in there at $1.50, they are going to be recorded at the amount of material you expected to use, not what you actually used. All of your inventory is carried at standard. That material is going into work in process inventory at the amount that you expected to use and the price you expected to pay. All of your inventory is carried at standard. And as a result of that, that quantity variance pops right up in the accounting system. Does that make sense? All right, so we're going to do one more problem here with just a simple purchased and used is the same, just to kind of remind us of how everything that we did on Monday, and then we'll move on to a more difficult problem. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try splitting my screen here so that I can keep my template up and you can see the actual problem as well. I know you can see it, but my Zoom people, can you see? What's that?
It's on.
It's on, yeah, but, oh, yeah, so you can see it. Can you actually see it? Okay, good. All right, so this way you won't have to have your slides up and trying to watch the slides and watch my template. All right, so let's do this problem. So it says Streetsboro Ceramics produces large planters to be used in urban landscaping projects. A special earth clay is used to make the planters. The standard quantity of clay used for each planter is 24 pounds, and the company uses a standard cost of $1.96 per pound of clay. All right, here's your standards, your normal practical standards. When I'm making one of these planters, these standards are on a per unit or per planter basis. I'm telling you that each planter should take 24 pounds of clay. That is a normal practical. I'm including waste, I'm including spoilage, because I'm going to go back and see how well we're using this clay or how well it's holding up. And I need to have a normal, practical, fair amount. Right? And when I look at this $1.96 per pound, I'm going to be evaluating my purchasing department's ability to negotiate a price for this clay. I want a good, fair, reasonable price. So this should be the final delivered price. It should include shipping, less any purchase discounts. So when I go back and tell the purchasing department, you did not do a good job negotiating a price, I have a fair, normal, practical amount. Fair evaluations are going to be normal, practical, or better than ideal standards. Okay, the company uses a standard. All right, so Streetsboro produced 3,500 planters in May. Why do I care about that? Why do I care that I made 3,500 planters? Kenzie?
Well, that's like the actual amount.
Yes, so that's what I made. So why do I care that if I'm looking at my template, why do I care?
Well, we need to like compare it.
Okay. I see.
Ashley?
Ashley,
Would it be for AQU actual like quantity made?
close.
Or-
Yeah, not for AQU, but for SQU. Standard quantity. Remember, I put that big A there to remind you that this is your flexible budget and you have to flex it to actual output. Remember, you're looking at the quantity of clay. You're analyzing the material, which is the clay that goes into these pots or these planters. And so here, I'm going to start with those 3,500 planters, and then I need to move that into quantity of clay. All right, so that's why I need to know actual output. I need to do this or need this for my flexible budget. All right, so in that month, 87,500 pounds of clay were purchased and used at the total cost of $168,000. All right, so why do I care that it was purchased and used? Because you need the actual quantity purchased when you're doing the price variance, and you need the actual quantity used when you are calculating your quantity or use variance. So here it is the same, just like Tuscan tortilla. And so you really only need one column because actual quantity purchase is the same as used. All right, well, let's start. So what did I actually spend for this clay? What was the actual quantity that I purchased?
Brooke.
Brooke,
Well, I was gonna say the cost per play actual was $1.93.
okay, so, all right, but so let's start. What was the actual quantity purchased? Brianna, 87,500 pounds of clay, right? So they told you that the actual amount that we paid was 168. I want to break everything down now into quantity and price. So I know I bought 87,500 pounds of clay, and I know that I paid $1.68. And so, who did I just talk to? Ashley? Was it Ashley?
It was Brooke.
Brooke. So Brooke, what Brooke did was she backed out what this price was. So you don't have to do that, but if it's going to help you to figure out whether this variance is favorable or unfavorable, you can do that. And I think it's $1.92. Yeah, $1.92. All right, so I know that this company just went out and spent $168,000 for clay. They bought 87,500 pounds of it, and they must have paid $1.92 if the total cost was $168,000. All right, so that's my actual. I want to know how well we did with the price that we negotiated, that $1.92. So I'm going to use the exact same actual quantity purchase because I'm trying to isolate just price here. So I'm still looking at that same 87,500 pounds of clay, but now I want to use the standard price. What price did I expected to pay for this clay? Brianna?
$1.96.
$1.96. And if I did pay $1.96, then I would have paid $171,500. But that's not what I paid. I paid $168. So the difference between these two numbers is going to be your price variance. And now you have to figure out whether it is favorable or whether it is unfavorable. Caroline.
How did you get the $1.92?
So what they told us is that the total cost was 168, and when we bought 87,500 pounds. So like I said, you don't have to back that out, but it might be helpful now when you're trying to figure out favorable or unfavorable. Okay, favorable or unfavorable? Actually, yep, it is favorable. What's causing the difference between these two numbers, you can see, has nothing to do with quantity. I'm using the same actual quantity. I am isolating price here. I know that my purchasing department was able to go out and negotiate a price that was 4 cents less per pound, right? The difference between these two numbers is 4 cents. But that 4 cents per pound was 4 cents for each one of these 87,500 pounds. So 4 cents for each one of these 87,500 pounds is what I saved. Total savings of $3,500. You have a favorable price variance. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, well, so we got a good price for this clay. Let's see how well it holds up. Now it's time to do the quantity variance. So like I said, watch out for this. With materials, you buy it and then you use it. The quantity variance is telling you how well you're using this clay or how well it's holding up. So you can only evaluate the clay that you have used. In this case, everything that you purchased was used. So it's the exact same. I bought 87,500 and I also used 87,500 pounds of clay. So my middle column is the same. Okay. Time to do the flexible budget. I need to calculate the standard quantity. And remember, I put that big A there to remind you that this is not your master budget. This is still your flexed budget, flexed to actual output. You still need to look at how many units that you produced. But don't get confused here. I'm still looking at the material in those units. The quantity is in pounds of clay. So I still need this number to be in pounds of clay. So what I'm saying here is, if I made 3,500 of these planters, how much clay should I have used? Would I expect to use? So if I go to these standards, remember, they are all on a per unit basis. Caroline. Okay, so what is the standard per?
Well, it's 24 pounds for each planter.
Right, the standards, remember, are given to you on a per unit basis. So if each one of these, again, normal, practical, I've included waste, I've included spoilage, should be 24 pounds. Then, and if I made 3,500 of them, then the standard quantity that I would have expected to use based on actual output would be 84,000 pounds of clay.
You have a question. It says, what does SQA stand for?
Standard quantity allowed for actual output.
And Stella also has her hand raised.
Yep, go ahead. Stella?
Yes. So,
Did you have a question?
oh no, I just want to answer the question.
Oh, okay. All right. So everybody's good with the 84 now? All right, so my flexible budget, flex to actual output, my standard price is still $1.96, because remember, for the quantity variance, what I'm trying to do is isolate the quantity. The quantity is what is causing the difference between these two numbers. So my flexible budget here is going to be $164,640. The difference between these two numbers is going to be my quantity variance. And Stella, do you want to tell me if this is favorable or unfavorable?
This is unfavorable.
This is unfavorable because?
You used more raw material than you expected to use.
Exactly. What I know from the problem is that we used 87,500 pounds of clay to make 3,500 planters, right? That was the actual quantity used. And then when I look over here, I use the exact same actual quantity of planters, apples to apples here. And I'm saying I would have expected them to only need 84,000 pounds. And this 24, remember, this is not an ideal standard. This is normal, practical. I built in waste, I built in spoilage, and they use more than that. And so this is an unfavorable use for quantity variance. Everybody good with this? I can do this without taking my cells away. Oh, and then here's the shortcut. Right, so if you're looking back at this and you're trying to figure out the quantity variance, remember what caused the difference in the quantity variance was the actual quantity used versus the standard quantity, and there's that A flexed to actual output. That A is there to remind you that this is your flexible budget. So this is what caused the difference. And since you pay $1.96 per pound of clay, that extra clay that you use cost us $6,860. And then same thing, the price variance has isolated the price. Actual price to standard price is what is causing this difference. There's that 4 cents that you saved per pound. And since you bought 87,500 pounds, the total savings is $3,500. So totally up to you whether you use the general model or you use the shortcut. You're going to get the exact same answers. Okay, So here is an important subtlety about materials. Materials is definitely the harder of the three product costs to analyze. So up to this point, we have purchased and used the exact same amount, and that almost never happens. You buy your material and then you use it. So it is an important subtlety that you are looking for. Remember the template: actual quantity purchased for the price variance, actual quantity used for the use variance. All right, so I'm going to go back to Tuscan tortilla, but now I'm not going to purchase everything that I used. Now I'm going to buy. So here's the actual information. I know my purchasing department went out and bought 105,000 pounds of flour, and they paid $1.45 per pound. They used 98,000 pounds to make 20,000 cases of tortillas. All right, so here's the actual information that happened. This is just a reminder, I didn't change any of the standards here. Each one of these cases should still take 5 pounds of flour, and the price we're expecting to pay should still be $1.50. Okay. So let's put it into the template now. What did I actually pay for the flour? Quantity and price. So I know I'm going to start with the actual quantity, which is 105,000 pounds of flour. The actual price that I paid was $1.45. So I know my purchasing department just went out and spent $152,250 on flour. What I want is feedback from this. I want to know two things. How did the purchasing department do negotiating this price of $1.45? And then how well did that flour hold up? Price, quantity variance. So in order to get the price variance, I need to isolate this price. How well did we do with the $1.45? So I need to use the exact same actual quantity purchased, which is 105,000 pounds. But now I'm going to use the standard price. What price did I expect the purchasing department to have to pay? Austin. $1.50. And if they did pay $1.50, then I would have paid $157,500 for that flour, but I didn't. I only paid $152,250. So the difference between these two numbers is the price variance. It is favorable because I paid 5 cents less per pound. Right? Purchasing department negotiated a price that was 5 cents less than what I expected. And since they bought 105,000 pounds, they saved 5 cents on each one of those 105,000 pounds. Total savings resulted in $5,250. Okay. Is everybody good with that? All right, now let's see how well it held up. Right, good price, but I don't want to evaluate the purchasing department just on price. I need quality and price. Right, does that sound like a commercial? Quality, comfort, and price. Oh, nice. Okay, I don't know. I must be punchy. I didn't have enough coffee. All right, so let's do, if I'm going to do my quantity variance, I know that I need to compare my middle column to my flexible budget. And I also know that I did not use all of this flour that I bought. So for the purchasing department, or the purchasing, price variance, which is evaluating the purchase, I need to use actual quantity purchased. But how can I evaluate flour if I haven't used it yet? So I need to know actual quantity used, which was only 98,000 pounds. Okay, so now my middle column is still actual quantity times standard price, but actual quantity used at standard price is what I'm going to use to compare to my flex budget. And flexed budget, there's that big A to remind you that this is your flex budget. What do I want to put right here? What am I flexing it to? Caitlin.
Would it be 7,000?
So tell me how you're getting 7,000. How'd you get 7,000?
I just subtracted the amount that they thought we was gonna use and the actual what
Okay.
we.
All right, so standard quantity allowed, here's the little asterisk is showing you that you need to calculate it, starting with actual units produced, right? So I'm telling you that this has to be flexed to actual output. So now I'm going back to actual units, which are cases. Remember, what am I making? I'm making cases of tortillas. I'm trying to figure out, based on the 20,000 cases that I actually made, this still has to be quantity in pounds of flour, but I need to flex this to my actual output. I made 20,000 cases of tortillas. I still need this to be in pounds of flour. So what I know is when I look at my standards, they are all on a per unit or per case basis. So when I look at my standards, I know that each one of these cases that I actually made, I would have allowed 5 pounds of flour for each one of those cases. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
All right, good. So this is my standard quantity allowed based on actual output. I'm going to multiply that by my standard price, which is still $1.50. And this is going to be my flexible budget, which is $150,000. The difference between these two numbers is my quantity variance. And you can see that quantity is causing the difference between the two numbers. It's not price. I'm using the exact same standard price. So the quantity here is causing the difference. Is this favorable or is this unfavorable?
Neutral.
Netra,
It's favorable
why is it favorable?
because you're using less than available.
Yes. The nice thing about this part of this chapter is that all three of these production costs are variable expenses. So anytime your actual is less than standard, it is going to be favorable. In this case, what I know is I use 98,000 pounds of flour to make 20,000 cases. Flex to that same 20,000 apples to apples comparison here, I would have expected them to need 100,000 with a normal practical amount of flour. They use 2,000 pounds less than what we expected them to use. And since they use less material, 2,000 pounds at a price of $1.50, that saved me $3,000. So the use or quantity saved me 3,000 favorable. Correll.
Yeah, so I was wondering, can we assume that the quality was better than expected in this case?
You can't assume anything, and I'm glad you're asking that question. When you look at the quantity variance here, all that tells you is that you used less than what you expected. It could be good material. It could be that your labor is just really skilled and they know how to make cases of tortillas and they're faster than what you expected. So this is still all management by exception. These variances are large variances that are drawing your attention. And when you see a large variance, that's where you're going to put your time and effort. So just because this variance is a price variance, I know the book is telling you that it's the purchasing department that is negotiating this price, but it doesn't mean that it's the purchasing department's fault either. This could be the production department causing a rush order and saying, oh, I didn't plan right and I need more flour. And so that kind of puts the purchasing department in a rough position where they don't get their discounts by buying in large quantities, right? So and this is a great question, these variances, all they tell you is if it's large, something's happening that you weren't expecting to happen. Which I'm actually going to go over right now. Okay, so here's what we just calculated. And here's the shortcuts in case you want to go back and start practicing shortcuts, right? What caused the difference is the price. And then here, what caused the difference is the quantity. What I also have in the slides here is what you've read already about CNC Sports, because they go through CNC Sports and they do the same thing with their making jackets. So I feel like at this point, we've probably done enough material problems, but this is good for you to go back and kind of play around with what you've read in the chapter and make sure that another problem is always a good thing, right? So here, they bought 25,000 yards of material. They used 24,000 yards. So this will be good practice for you. And then you can either look in the slides or look in the textbook to make sure that, yes, I understand how that template works. In the textbook, they just don't have these side by side. They show actual quantity purchased for the price variance, actual quantity used for the use variance. And then I have that big A by standard quantity just to remind you that you need to flex that to actual output. And then I did the shortcuts for you as well, so you can tie this to the textbook. I think, Kenzie, you were the one that was saying sometimes I do something that's different from the textbook. I'm making sure I've got it covered now, because I don't think I am, but if you think I am, then I'm going to make sure that I'm tying this. All right, and this is perfect, Carell, because this is exactly what we were just talking about. Who's responsible for these variances? What are they telling you? So the material price variance, your textbook is going to tell you it's the purchasing department. The purchasing department does the buying. They're the ones that are negotiating the price. So it should fall on the purchasing manager's shoulders, whether this is unfavorable or favorable. Production manager is in charge of actually using the flour. He's the one that is supervising the direct labor people as they are creating these cases. So the quantity variance should fall on the shoulders of the production manager. Maybe. This is all management by exception. So here's what I'm showing you. Here's the production manager saying, I'm not responsible for this unfavorable material quantity variance. You purchased cheap material, so my people had to use more of it. Could that be true? Absolutely, that could be true. So you can see the quantity variance, even though it's unfavorable, isn't falling on the production manager's shoulder. If the purchasing department went out and bought lousy flour, it's not their fault that it keeps falling apart and they have to keep throwing it away and starting again, right? So that would be a reason why they would make or use more flour. And then here's another. So the purchasing manager is telling you, your poor scheduling sometimes requires me to rush order materials at a higher price, causing unfavorable price variance. Could that be true? Absolutely could be true, right? So just because it's a price variance doesn't mean that it's the purchasing manager's fault. This is management by exception. When you're looking at these variances, it is up to you to look into what is causing these variances. And here's just some of the things that could be causing it. So if you're looking at a material price variance and it's favorable, it could be because the purchasing department negotiated in bulk, right? Economies of scale, they bought a lot of it. And so because they did that, they got a good price quantity discount. Maybe they purchased lower quality goods at a cheaper price, which is what you're looking for when you're doing that quantity variance as well. Maybe they received a discount from a supplier that is anxious to sell to you. That's a possibility. Or maybe the supplier just decreased the price because of market. So all of those things could be reasons that or it could be things that caused a favorable variance. Unfavorable, maybe you purchased, like we just talked about, a smaller than normal quantity and lost that quantity discount. Or maybe you purchased a higher quality flour and that cost you more money. Or maybe the supplier increased their price unexpectedly. And then here, maybe you had to place a rush order with overnight delivery, and that would cause you to pay more. So management by exception doesn't point the finger really at anyone. It is up to you then to go in and figure out potential problems. Quantity variances, favorable quantity variance could be that we bought better quality material, right? And so it's better flour, so it's holding up better and we're using less of it. It could be highly skilled workers generating a lower scrap rate. It could be your direct labor people that are just really good and using less of your flour. Unfavorable use of lower quality flour would make more waste. Lower skilled workers, right? So would also use too much of it. And really here, what I'm showing you is it could be nobody's fault. The machines may be down, right? Machine problems are ruining the flour, and that's nobody's fault, right? Or poor supervision. It could be that production manager's fault, allowing, which would allow extra scrap and waste, or maybe somebody stealing your flour. So there's all kinds of things that can cause these variances, is what I'm telling you. You just have to, management by exception, look into it. All right, things to consider on material variances. So remember, your price variance is calculated at the time of the purchase. This is real time. Think about that journal entry. This was the aha piece that I missed, that you are getting this feedback immediately. It's right in your accounting system. And the price and the quantity variances could be from the same cause. It could be a labor problem. This is all management by exception here. All right, one more material problem. Should we do it? Let's do it. All right, Mitchell Products manufactures fake boulders to be used in various landscaping applications. So as I read these problems, what I am going to do is I'm going to kind of think it through, and I'll tell you my thought process as I'm reading all of this data. Because as I read this data, I know exactly where it goes, right? So I know right away that I'm making fake boulders. Boulders are the units that I am producing. So I'm going to be looking at evaluating the material that's going into these boulders, but I am flexing my budget to the actual boulders that I'm going to be making. All right, so the material is resin. So they tell you a special resin is used to make the boulders. The standard quantity of resin used for each boulder is 2 pounds. This is normal, practical, includes waste, includes spoilage. So when I go back and I look at my quantity variance, this will be a fair evaluation. Mitchell Products uses a standard cost of $1.80 per pound of resin. This is a normal, practical amount that I'm going to compare and I'm going to evaluate my purchasing department with. This should be final delivered. It should include shipping, less purchase discounts. So when I go back and I say you negotiated a bad price, I have a fair evaluation here. The company produced 11,000 boulders. That's what I know I need to flex my budget to actual output. In the month, 21,750 pounds of resins were purchased at a total cost of $43,500. A total of 21,500 pounds were used. I need 2 middle columns here. Purchased for the price variance, used for the use variance. Actual quantity purchased, actual quantity used. Okay, so let's do it. Let's calculate the material price variance and let's calculate the material quantity variance. So I'll bring back my template. All right, so while I'm closing this out, why don't you take a shot and see if you can calculate the direct material price variance. Okay, let's do it together here. So what did you get for actual quantity purchased?
Michael?
Who is it? Hi, Bob?
It will be 21,750 pounds.
Exactly. 21,750 pounds are purchased, and the actual price that I paid.
Right.
Danny,
Would it be $2?
it would. And how'd you get two?
You divide 43,500, which was the purchase cost, and divide that by the pounds, which gives you $2.
Exactly. You don't have to back that $2 out. They told you the total cost that you paid for this material was $43,500, and they told you you bought 21,750 pounds. If you want, if it helps you, you can back that out to see that you actually paid $2 per pound. This is what I'm evaluating, $2 per pound. All right, so I'm going to use the exact same actual quantity that I purchased because I'm trying to do my price variance. So I bought 21,750 pounds. That's going to be, my middle column is calculating with the same number here. So the difference is going to be caused because of the price. What is my standard price? Sophia.
1.8.
Right. When you look at the standard, 1.8 or $1.80 is what I expected to pay. Normal, practical, final delivered price. Right. So the difference between these two numbers is caused by the price. The difference is 4,350. Is this favorable or unfavorable? Adam.
This would be unfavorable
Why unfavorable?
because the actual price that you purchase it for is more than the standard price that the industry purchases it for.
20 cents more, right? If you're doing the shortcut method here, you're saying I paid 20, or the purchasing department is paying or negotiated a price that was 20 cents more than what I expected. And this is a normal, practical, final delivered price. And they paid 20 cents more than that. And it's 20 cents for each one of the 21,750 pounds they purchased, resulting in an extra $4,350. Okay, so I paid more for this material. Did I buy better quality material? Because I could see, if this is good material, I could see this come out in the quantity or use variance. So let's see how well I did using this material or how well it held up. What's my actual quantity used? Jameson.
21,500.
Yes, you need to use actual quantity used for the use variance. I may have bought 21,750 pounds, but I have only used 21,500 of it. How can I evaluate flour, or in this case, resin, that I have purchased and I haven't used yet? So I've got the 21,500 actual quantity used. Standard price is still $1.80. So my middle column for my quantity variance is different from the middle column for my price variance. Actual quantity purchased for price, actual quantity used for use variance. Kirill.
Yeah, I was supposed to answer like the second question.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right, so I have my middle column. Now it is time to prepare my flexible budget. Okay, so this one's for everybody. What is the standard quantity allowed for actual output? Okay, 10 more seconds. Okay, I'm gonna close it out. So take your final guess. This is your final answer. Let's see how you did. Is everybody good? I think that's everybody. Okay, 73% of you have it right. I'll show you the results so you can see where you fell in relation to everybody else. So 22,000 pounds is the standard quantity allowed for actual output. So how do you calculate that? You know you have to start with the actual, Caitlin, let's do this again because you, go ahead.
Yeah, you produced 11,000 builders and each of them requires 2 pounds. So 11,000 times 2 is 22.
Perfect. Standard quantity is flexed to actual output. If you forget how to calculate it, go to the actual units that you produced. I made 11,000 boulders. I know that I need to put this in pounds of resin, right? I'm analyzing the material that went into these 11,000 built boulders. So I need to look at standard, and each one should take, because my standards are on a per boulder basis, each one should take 2 pounds of resin, normal practical amount. So I know I'm expecting my workers to need 22,000 pounds of resin, and they actually only needed 21,500 pounds. All right, so this is what's going to cause the variance. My flex budget is calculated with the same standard price, right? I'm isolating quantity here. The difference between these two numbers will be my quantity or use variance, and is it favorable or unfavorable? Kenzie?
It's favorable because it's less.
Right. I know that my workers use 21,500 pounds of resin to make 11,000 boulders. I flexed it to the exact same 11,000 boulders, apples to apples, and I can see here that they used 500 pounds less than what I expected. Maybe we did buy better material, right? What could be causing these? Management by exception. You need to look into this to see what would have caused this. It could be that your workers are really skilled and they really know how to make fake boulders. It could be that we had really good material. But the idea here is it's giving you something to think about. Management by exception. Okay. Here's the shortcut. And then we'll stop here. So on Friday, we will get into direct labor. So material is definitely the hardest of the three. Take a look at all the possible things that could happen. Labor and overhead, I think, are much easier to do, but we'll tackle that on Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you Friday. Thank you so much.
Can I get back to Stevie in 30 minutes? Can I get back to you? 20 minutes.
See you later.